भव शङ्कर देशिक मे शरणं भव शङ्कर देशिक मे शरणं भव शङ्कर देशिक मे शरणं भव शङ्कर देशिक मे शरणम्।
ॐ श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवत् व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। If someone were to ask you, who are you? The most common reaction would be to give our name. I am Devadatta. But we know very well that I cannot be just Devadatta because it's a name that my parents gave me when I was born. On what basis they gave me the name, I don't even know. So really, that cannot be correct. One can examine it further and further. One can say, I am so-and-so's son, or so-and-so's brother or sister. Those are all relationships. Although they don't change during the lifetime of one person, they are relationships. They cannot be I. And if we keep examining it further, I think the point where most people would stop is when they look at identifying themselves as the body and whatever is within the body. That seems to be the most common understanding. I am the sharira, the body, and whatever is inside the body. If you take it individually, the physical body cannot be I, and you can see that easily. One easy way of saying it is that physical body keeps changing all the time. Every single cell in the body changes. It is said that your entire body, all the cells change within a period of, I think, 12 or 24 months. Then obviously, I cannot be changing like that all the time. By definition, I has to be something stable. Nor can you say it is anything like a mind or a thought or my senses, because they are all subject to the same problem of being changing. All the time they're changing. Mind is changing, thoughts are changing, looks are changing, form is changing. 30 years ago, what you were, the physical body is not the same. Was there a different I and now a different I? No, you identified yourself as something which was right through the same. Maybe even your ideologies changed. When a person was a young fellow, graduating from college, calling everybody comrade, may be a leftist. But later, he could very well be a capitalist. He could have started his own industry. His whole outlook changes. The way he looks at things changes. Clearly, none of these, nor a combination of any of these things, can represent the I. So I have a problem. This body, this mind, etc., I can very clearly say I cannot be any of them. This much everybody can argue, think, analyze, and arrive at. You don't need very great skill sets. All of these things, they are what you can call objects of the world. The physical body is an object. Thoughts are objects, intangible, but they're objects, all the same. Ideas are objects, concepts are objects, relationships are objects. All of them are objects. And yet, in and through all of these, we recognize an invariable, which I can recognize as being the same as it was 30 years ago, as it is today. Form has changed. That fellow was an athlete at that time. Today he's got a pot belly. His head was full of black hair. Today he has no hair. Forget about black. Yet he's the same person. At least we recognize that there is something which has remained unchanging. What is that? And really the question is, do I want to know myself? If I have to understand the real nature of I, then whatever means I use to recognize all the objects of the world, which is what? The five senses we have. Sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. We use this or a combination of these to know anything in this world. They're all objects. And we use these to know the objects. But I am not trying to find anything about any object. I'm trying to understand I, not an object. How am I going to do that? It's going to be very difficult because senses cannot see this. Because I, the real I, not a very good phrase to use, but the I that I'm trying to differentiate from the I that I assume I to be, controls these senses. These senses cannot act on their own. Something else controls them. That nyaya vastu, something that is to be known. And since I don't have these faculties to know the I have a problem. It's exactly the way you take a camera. Oh, these days all selfies are there, so I don't want to use the camera example. I use a different example. You take a torchlight into a room which is dark. You can use the torchlight to see all the objects in the room. But the torchlight cannot be used to see oneself, see the torch itself. It's true of everything. Objects of the world, how do I know? What is the method I use? There are two ways you can look at the objects. Like I said, all the senses are our one way of perceiving them. But I can also know them through the medium or other media, like words, for example. I have been told, I have read in the Vedas that there is something called a Svargaloka. And that a certain type of punya allows one to go to Svargaloka. I can accept that. But this knowledge is what is called, is not a direct knowledge, it is an indirect knowledge called Paroksha Jnanam. Paroksha means away from you. Paroksha Jnanam. Even there are two types of Paroksha Jnanam. Like something like the Svargaloka is a Paroksha Jnanam which can never be anything other than Paroksha Jnanam. Because there is no way I can verify it. But there are other types of objects where the jnana may be paroksham today, but I can get direct knowledge of those objects at a later date. For example, any indirect knowledge, like you see a lot of smoke, then you know that there is fire. It is paroksha jnana because you don't actually see the fire. None of the five senses are used to see the fire. You only see smoke. But you could go there wherever the smoke is coming from and see the fire. Then what happens? This paroksha jnanam is not paroksha anymore. Because now I am using my direct perception to see that. It is the opposite of paroksha jnanam. In Sanskrit, it is called pratyaksha jnanam, direct knowledge. My five senses give me that knowledge directly. So that paroksha jnanam has become pratyaksha jnanam. Other pratyaksha jnanam are visible to me by using the five senses. I can see, I can hear, I can smell, I can touch, I can taste. They are direct knowledge called pratyaksha jnanam. These will apply to all the objects. Any objects can be known through these. The problem is, when you want to know the nature of I, this won't work. Because it is not available for pratyaksha jnanam as we discussed. It cannot be pratyaksha, nor can it be paroksha. Because you're talking about I. You can't be closer than that. Paroksha is about something else, somewhere else. So that one jnanam, which is neither pratyaksha jnanam nor paroksha jnanam, is the only one to which I can apply the term aparoksha jnanam. It is neither paroksha jnanam nor pratyaksha jnanam, but aparoksha jnanam. It's the only jnanam which can take that nomenclature. Aparoksha jnanam. Aparoksha jnanam is the jnanam of the self, Atma. And clearly, this aparoksha jnana, which is not paroksha, not pratyaksha, I have to find other ways of knowing this. How do I do that? When you have, for example, have you had an experience when you put your glasses on top of your head, or at least known other people do that, and then go hunting for the glasses all over the place? Where is my glasses? Or sometimes you put on a string and put it at the back of at your back. I've misplaced my glasses, search all over the place. Right there on you. or even many of us would have experienced, you're looking for a piece of paper, something which you've written something on. You're sure it is on the table, on your work table. So you go and pick up all the papers there and look for it and say it's not there. Then you go and check again, it's not there. Then somebody else says, let me help you. You go and look, third time, remove all the papers, put one side, one by one, you check, suddenly it is there. What happened the first time? You didn't see it, it's just there. It is something like that. I exist, I know. And I have, through careful analysis, have arrived at I cannot be what? Not my body, not my mind, not any of the objects of the world. All that I've easily arrived at. But I still don't know the real nature of I. I know I exist. You may call it samanya jnana. General knowledge that yes, I am. And that is not the body, mind, etc., etc. And yet I don't know the specifics of I. And I can't use any of these methods to find I. So how do you know that? There are texts available where you can understand the nature of I. Like you have eyes to check form and color, that Vedas give you information about you, words of the Veda. The subject matter of Veda, especially the Anta portion, Vedanta, is you. But Vedanta is not very easy to study. Every Upanishad, all the Upanishads together, what we call Vedanta, tells you exactly the same thing about you. So the Acharyas we have had, the great Shankaracharya, other Acharyas, have tried to help us by writing what are called Prakarana Granthas. This Aparokshanubhuti is one such Grantha attributed to Shankaracharya. So you now have two words here, Aparoksha and Anubhuti. Anubhuti, if you look at the dictionary, means experience. Bhudatu, Anubhava, Anubhuti. And if you say that we've arrived at the fact that Aparoksha is Atma I, how can you experience I? That's a contradiction in terms. How can I experience I? I can only experience an object. So I have a problem. So in this context, Anubhuti of Atma Jnanam has to be taken as direct, immediate knowledge. Direct, immediate knowledge of the self, the Atma, can be called Aparoksha Anubhuti. In fact, this is where many people have a difficulty. Because our brain is so wired that when we try to study anything and learn something, we are only learning about objects. It doesn't sit easily in our mind that I am trying to understand the self. Because in this Jagat, I learn something. I know something. Or three separate things. I and that object that you want to know. I, the knower, the object that you want to know, and the knowing itself. That's the way we look at everything. So what do we do? If we understand that Shastra, Vedanta, is a pramana, is a means of knowledge for knowing the nature of I, exactly the way I would take my eyes as the pramana for knowing color and form, then I can depend on that pramana to give me that knowledge. That pramana in the form of Vedanta, as I told you, is very cryptic. Very difficult to understand just by reading that. You again take all the word meanings, it makes no sense. So you need not only the words of the Shastra, you also need somebody who has already gone through the whole thing and is therefore able to unfold the whole thing for you. So we need a guru. So to do this, we need the words. Either we take the words of Vedanta, or we start by taking the words of a prakarana grantha like Aparokshanubhuti, and with the help of a guru, we try and understand what the Acharya is trying to explain to us. This is called Shraddha. Just the way you have Shraddha in your eyes. I see green, you accept it is green. You don't question it unless you have color blindness. Why? Because I is the pramana for color, the means of knowledge for color. So if Vedanta tells you and the Guru unfolds it for you and says, you have now understood that I cannot be the body, I cannot be the mind, I cannot be the senses, I cannot be any of these other things. You are Anantam, Chaitanyam. You use all these words. You are everything. Very difficult to grasp. You ask the Guru, Guruji, what do you mean I'm everything? But you don't reject it because you have Shraddha. The Shastra says, Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. That means you are everything. As long as I have the I notion attached to the body and what is in the body, I can never get a grasp on this. So the first portion of the whole thing talks about how to look at this and say, I cannot be the body. I cannot be the mind. I cannot be any of those things inside the Sharira because they're all changing. They're all have to have a reference absolute against which they change. That absolute has got to be I. So then the absolute, what is that? Like other texts, like the various Upanishads, Aparokshanubhuti also unfolds this for us. How do I understand this statement, Tattvamasi? You started with who I am and then with the name and then form and then relationships and everything else, rejected all of them And now you have to take the step into the saying, therefore, what am I? What is that Vishesha Jnanam I have to gain? You can already see the difficulty. And in order that that difficulty can be addressed, we need a lot of help. We need help at several levels. One is at my own level. I am this concept of I being this within this body so strongly embedded here that I cannot separate it. So that itself is my first problem. At the second level, the problem is, okay, if I have to accept it, for the moment I put it in suspension and I look at what Shastra tells us, I have to have total confidence in the Shastra. Shastra meaning Veda, in this case Vedanta. And because it is all, like I said, cryptic, I'm depending on another person, a guru, to explain it to me. I must therefore have confidence in my guru. This absolute confidence in the Shastra and in the guru is what we call Shraddha. It is not as loosely is translated as faith. It is Shraddha. There is no equivalent for it. I need to have the Shraddha because it is telling me something which I don't know. It is telling me something which is so big that I find it difficult to grasp. You can't be bigger. It says you are everything. How am I going to grasp something like that? Because I'm still thinking of I in the same way as I did earlier. I'm a 5'7" Indian male, son of so-and-so, father of so-and-so, so many years old. Hey, the Sharira is so many years old. How can you be so many years old? And here the Guru telling you, you're everything. You're the cause of everything. So to get to understand this, the first thing I need is the grace of the Guru and the grace of Ishwara. I know that in this Jagat, there is a power, an Ishwara, who is Sarva Shaktiman, Sarva Jna, who knows everything, to whom I can appeal and say, look, help me understand. Therefore, all these texts will always start with one prayer. Even this Aparokshanubhuti, Acharya starts with a prayer. Then the prayer will always be to Guru and to Ishwara. So the prayer he uses is Sri Harim Paramanandam Upadeshtaram Ishwaram Vyapakam Sarvalokanam Karanam Tam Namamyaham. I bow down to, I pray to Tam Namami Aham. I pray to whom? Sri Harim. Sri is always the first, the Om, Sri, etc. are called Mangala, indicating the auspiciousness of all this. Hari comes from a root word, hru, meaning to remove, to eliminate. So Hari is the name of the one who removes my sorrow. So to that Hari, Sri Harim, whose nature is Paramanandam, whose nature is limitless Ananda. every ananda that we experience is limited in terms of time, space, and object. But this Sri Hari to whom we are praying, his very nature is Paramananda. Sri Harim Paramanandam. To that Sri Hari, who is the Upadeshtaram, the one who is the giver of Upadesha. My Guru gives me Upadesha. But where does my Guru get that jnanam from to give me Upadesha? From his Guru. And where does he get it from? His Guru. His Guru. His Guru. If you keep going, there has to be a first Guru for whom there is no other Guru. Such a Guru we call Upadeshtara. And we give this Ishwara a certain form, and the form we give to this first one to give Upadesha, we worship in the form of Lord Dakshinamurti. So that Ishwaram, to that Lord Dakshinamurti, whose nature is absolute Ananda, very nature of Ananda, Ananda Swarupa, who is everything in this Jagat. Sarva Lokanam Vyapakam. He pervades everything. That means what? That everything is nothing but Ishwara. Whole thought process is involved in that one word. Everything here is Ishwara. To that Ishwara, who is Sarva Lokanam Vyapakam, all the lokas. No, when we think of the Jagat, we think of this earth. That's not. Just now our Shuklaji went out into the space and I saw some very beautiful videos that he sent looking at the earth from there. He flew over Bangalore and Hyderabad. Very nice to see that video. All that is also Jagat only. All this cosmos is Jagat only. If you know very lokas, our shastra tells us there are 14 lokas. Our own loka, Bhu, is only one of them. All of them form part of the same samsara. So, Sarva Lokanam Vyapakam Ishwaram. To that Ishwara, who pervades the entire samsara, including all the lokas, and who is also the Karanam. Sarva Lokanam Karanam. This whole Jagat has come into existence because of who? Only then you can say that he pervades everything. Because there is a Karanam, and from it you get a Karyam, in effect. And the Karanam remains unchanging as it is. Like the example given in the Shastra, you go into a shop which sells all the earthenware. They sell pots and pans and lids and jars and foot scrapers and ornaments and I don't know what all they sell, jugs and all made of the same earth, same clay. So that clay is the Karana for all of them. None of that can exist independent of its Karana. If you remove the clay from any one of them, nothing is left. So this material cause of all the products in the shop which is selling earthenware is nothing but clay. Now you look at the whole Jagat. Multiple things, so many different types of things. It looks as though there are multiple materials which are required to make this Jagat. But that Ishwara to whom I'm praying, there's only one. He is the entire Karanam for the entire Jagat. All the objects, all the material. Again, it is something which takes a little thinking to understand. Not only is he the material cause, he is also what is called the intelligent cause. Nimitta Karana. Why do I say that? All these products that I said there in the shop is selling clay products, somebody with the knowledge to make those products has made them from clay. That knowledge is involved in that. He makes it with a purpose. He makes a pot to perhaps hold water. But he makes other products with other purposes. But he has that knowledge. He has the ability to make it. In this Jagat, when you have so many things happening, so many products, tangible, intangible, all kinds of things, there is only one Ishwara, who is both the material cause and the intelligent cause for all of them. Sarva Lokanam Karanam. That Ishwara, to whom I pray. I pray because I have Shraddha in the Shastra and the words of the Guru. And those words seem to be contradicting what I thought I knew already. But because I have Shraddha, I accept those words saying, I have to understand how to reconcile these. Hey Bhagavan, help me reconcile these. So that Sri Harim Paramanandam Upadeshtaram Ishwaram Vyapakam Sarvalokanam Karanam Tam Namami Aham. I pray to, I pay my obeisance to. So that's how we start. Having started with a prayer to Lord Ishwara, for what purpose are you writing this and for whom are you writing this? There's something called Sadhana Chatushtayam. Anything you write, you will find they cover 4 aspects. What is the subject matter? Who is it being written for? What is the purpose for which being written? What is the gain that people will get? And Sambandha. What is the relationship between what is the result that you want and this text? Typically, these are covered in one shloka only. Acharya also does that. He takes this Aparokshanubhuti hi vai prochyate moksha siddhaye. What is this moksha? For siddhi of moksha. When we start the study, we don't know what moksha is, but we know something is there. And we have, because we have Shraddha, we say, okay, I need to find out what this is. And who can get it? Sadbihi. Sadbihi literally translates as good people. By the good people. Who is good people? In this context, it is not that necessarily what you define good and bad in the Jagat. There is no such thing as bad in our context of Shastra. Good people, well-prepared people, whose minds have been well-prepared. And who are willing to put in the effort and the commitment. You have to put in the commitment. There's a very beautiful word in this, muhur muhu. You see it in Bhagavad Gita also. Not only put in effort, but put in effort again and again and again, because in one go, it is very difficult to grasp these concepts. They're so contradictory to what is normally accepted. Therefore, muhurmuhu, again and again and again. He used the word sadbihi, by the good people. What do you mean by good people? People whose minds have been well prepared. In the context of learning this, they are called adhikari. One who is qualified to gain this knowledge, ready to gain this knowledge. Normally, it is true even in our normal this thing, no? You want to learn any subject, some basics you should know. The mind should definitely be prepared. If the mind is disturbed, no subtle knowledge can get in. Why go that far? If you are interested in doing something like a crossword or a Sudoku, as I'm sure many of you are, if your mind is agitated, you will not be able to do that. Therefore, the mind has to be in a position where it can absorb this. It's called Sadhana Chatushtayam. How do I prepare myself so that I can get there? I can bring the mind to a state where I can easily understand the knowledge that is being given to us. So it says, Swa varnashrama dharmena tapasa haritoshanat. Haritoshanat is propitiating Hari. Sadhanam prabhaye pumsam vairagyadi chatushtayam. The four categories of things which will help the mind. Viveka, Vairagya, Shramadamadi Shatka Sampattihi, and Mukshutvam. This is a separate subject, full subject by itself. But if you are constantly distracted by things in this jagat around you, then to gain the subtle knowledge is not going to be easy. As I said, even to do something like a complex puzzle, your mind has to focus there on that. Mind has to be clear. Mind cannot be agitated. If a fellow has had a fight with his best friend or his wife, you'd find difficult to understand anything, even in our normal worldly things. This is not going to be easy. So one has to develop these qualities called Sadhana Chatushtayam. Why does he say that? Because Shastra tells us this moksha is only jnanam. Look at that. All the while we started by saying, I am making a mistake about I. All I have to do is understand the real nature of I. It is moksha. Why do you say that? Because Shastra says that I that you've been trying to struggle, you've been trying so hard to understand, to struggling to figure out, is fullness itself. You're everything. If you're everything, then nothing should affect you. You are fullness, purnatvam. That knowledge, when it's absorbed aparokshataya, we go back to that word. When I can grasp that concept as I, that means I am able to cognitively separate my earlier concept of I and understand I really as the nature of Purnatvam. Then nothing else matters. It is only when you are at level X that you want to constantly improve to level X plus delta X. Little bit more, little bit more, little bit more, in whatever form. In terms of money, in terms of knowledge, in terms of wealth, in terms of fame, in terms of achievements, everything. But if you're totality yourself, what can you add to it? Nothing you can add. So if you can gain that jnanam aparokshataya, that means I am not saying that this sharira with all the limitations of this is complete. No. As long as that thought is there, it will never happen. And that will not go away. That is part of this jagat. Therefore, I have to gain that knowledge of I and absorb it as I. Then the jnanam frees me completely because there's nothing else after that. So this moksham that we are struggling for, which is total freedom, absolute freedom, is pure jnanam. It is like looking at any object. In the area is dark, you bring a light in there, everything becomes clear, visible. My entire life, starting from the time when a child is born, it is born in ignorance. How do you remove that? And if you can remove it, you're totally free. That ignorance starts from the time the child is born, has been there in that jiva for many, 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 many lives before that. So it can end when I bring in jnanam, knowledge. That knowledge, we said, has to come from a pramana, which is shastra, which is Upanishads. And this text is a wonderful entry into that. What is that error we make? There are several verses that Acharya takes. And he says, I, according to Shastra, is nitya. It is never born, never dies. It's always. And if I say the sharira is I, the sharira is born and dies. Sharira keeps changing. That never changes. Sharira has highs and lows. I don't have any highs and lows. So 5-6 verses Acharya takes and says, listen, how can you think like this? Because of your own confusion. The words he uses are tayoraikyam prapashyanti kimajnanamatha param. What can be more ajnanam than this? Something which is many to that one. Something which is anityam, keeps changing, to something which doesn't change. Something which is limited in every way to something which is unlimited. How can you say that they are the same? How can you say I am the sharira? What can be greater ignorance? Tayoho aikyam prapashyanti kim ajnanam atha param. How do you see the I as being the sharira? What can be more ignorant than that? How do I cover this? Very beautifully he brings it out. He first says, the sharira where I make the mistake and I are so different in every way. And yet, I am making this mistake saying I am the sharira. This is the beautiful paradox. At the same time, he says, everything in the jagat is I. My God, now this is a problem here. Everything in the Jagat is I, including my body, is I. I am not any of them. Therefore, he says, if you look at the body and see the difference between the body and this I concept, they're so different in every way. How can you call I as the Sharira? And then after that he says, through knowledge, you try and understand that the differences that you're seeing are only as though differences. Because of this very peculiar equation we have, everything in this Jagat, including my body, is nothing but I. But I am none of these. Our normal experience is what? If A is equal to B, then B has to be equal to A. That doesn't work here. Therefore, it causes confusion. Therefore, these paradoxes are seen. But he says, Buddhaihi, the people who are knowledgeable, Buddhaihi, they will tell you that Naham deho hyasadrupa jnanamityuchyate Buddhaihi. This is you should see, despite the differences, you should be able to see that everything here, including my body, mind, sense complex, everything is nothing but I. I am none of them. Once that becomes clear, the paradox becomes easy to grasp. That is why you need the words of the Shastra, which are unfolded by a guru, to understand that there are differences. You can see the differences. This body, etc., or what the Shastra calls anatma, not atma, not I. I is one. All these other things are called anatma. But does that mean there are two things? No. Because all these anatma are nothing but that one atma, I. Only thing is that I is none of them. Therefore, these differences that you see are only as though differences. So if one can see past these differences, one can see that there is only one possibility. A very good example, it is there in this also in other places as well. If you equate a wave to an individual and the whole ocean to Ishwara, Samashti, then this wave arises from the Ishwara, from the ocean, has this limited lifespan, and then merges back into the ocean. It's sustained by the ocean during that period and merges into the ocean. The wave can argue that I am a small thing, I have a small lifespan, how can you compare me to ocean? By understanding that the differences that you're seeing, it is small, it's limited, it's got a small lifetime as compared to the ocean. Ocean is vast. The differences are only as though. How? Very beautiful example. What is wave in essence? Is nothing but water. What is the ocean in essence? Water. The same water, we call it an ocean in a form. And in another form, we call it a wave. There are many waves in the ocean. But when you go past the differences and you see only water, then you have a clarity. There are no two things. There are no separate wave and a separate ocean. They're both only water. In the same way, just that I, it's called Atma, Brahman, all those names mean the same thing. Everything in the Jagat is nothing but that I, the Atma, Chaitanyam, Brahman, whatever name you want to give it. But that is none of these. I said, you take an example of clay products and clay, but in modern context, probably a little better example, different example may be easier to understand. The other day, I actually went to buy some bucket for the ashram. And this fellow, huge shop. He had all kinds of plastic things. Buckets and mugs and stools and bottles and containers of different sizes and planters and I don't know what all he had. But if you take a step back and look at them, is any of them different from plastic? They're all plastic. They have different shapes, they have different names, they have different purposes, but they're all plastic. That is the way the whole world is. If you go into the gold shop, gold ornament shop, as an individual, you may see that gold products there and say, oh, what a beautiful bangle. Look at the workmanship. Look at the filigree. Because your perspective is to look at that. But a gold bullion trader will only be interested in how much does it weigh, how much gold is there. Only gold for him. He's seeing it like that. Seems to make a lot of sense. But Swamiji, how can I go about getting this knowledge? Arjuna asked the same question, if you remember. And Bhagavan told him, do karma yoga. You said to me all the time that jnanam is the thing to gain, and now you're telling me to do karma yoga. Yes. That karma yoga will prepare you. What is karma yoga? Separate subject altogether. But doing what needs to be done. That includes prayers, meditation, japa, all of that. Prepare the mind. The word we saw here was sadbihi. A mind which is internally chitta shuddhi, atma shuddhi. So that you're in a position to receive that knowledge and assimilate that knowledge. And once that is done, in fact, you do it parallelly also. Shastra tells us that the method for learning and understanding this is simple. Atmavare jnatavyaha. You have to know this Atma. Shrotavyaha, you have to hear. You have to hear the Guru expound on the words of the Shastra. And having heard that, like I said, when you hear it the first time, there will be a lot of things which will be against what you thought you knew. Therefore, and keep inputs you keep getting. Therefore, Atmavare Mantavyaha. You have to do mananam. Careful vichara. Thinking about this. How can I reconcile what I thought I was and what Shastra tells me I am? How can I reconcile that? How can I reconcile the different points of view that people have been telling me? All of it sounds very logical. And then it says, Atma vare nididhyasitavyam. You have to eventually get into a contemplative frame of mind, where it is not simple meditation on Ishwara, where you already been doing that and saying, help me, make me understand. But look at the words of the Shastra. Tattvamasi, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. Like that, there are many words which the Guru will talk about in the classroom. Look at those words and try to understand the import of those words. That is Nididhyasana. So the text takes us through these steps into the method by which you can gain this knowledge. Get ready by making sure that mind is well prepared. Lead a life of dharma. Be a karma yogi. Earn all the necessary punya, which will lead you to access to the shastra as a pramana and to a guru. And at that stage, do regular shravanam, mananam, and nididhyasanam. So if one can follow this, all of these prakarana granthas will give us that. With that, one can come to the situation where one can understand what the Upanishads tell us about I. So get the mind ready. Do Shravanam, which is hearing. Do Mananam, and do Nididhyasanam. So I hope this 1 hour has opened up a lot of things for you and a plan of action for you to work on. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Bhava Shankara Deshika Me Sharanam. Bhava Shankara Deshika Me